get the sound. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Miami Miles. My name's Mickey. In today's video, we've partnered with Soul Performance and M Engineering because we're going to test every single exhaust configuration on my GT4 RS. Have you guys ever wondered what exhaust makes the most power? Is it over axle pipes? Is it headers? Is it the rear section that I need to do to make the most performance for the best bang for your buck? Well, today we're going to find out. We're going to test every single exhaust configuration, telling you which one makes the most power, but also we're going to show you the delta of change between one configuration and the next. Hopefully after this video, you guys can go online and pick the right configuration for you, because I feel like this is so important. At this juncture, I've probably tested 12 different configurations on this car as it sits, and I think today we found my favorite. So we're gonna talk you through dyno charts, and then at the end, I'm gonna drive the two configurations that made the most power. I'm super excited because, guys, I think that the car is gonna transform with the Soul Performance parts. So let's get right into it. All right, so before we get started with the test, I'm gonna bring in Charles from M Engineering. Good to see you, bud.
Great to see you, Mickey. All right, guys, this is Charles with M Engineering, South Florida. We've got Mickey's GT4 RS here. We're testing this car on our mainline Pro Hub dyno. There's a couple advantages to this dyno. We're not on rollers, so we don't have any hidden variables regarding traction on this thing. So the results back to back are going to be very, very consistent with very little hidden variables. And that was the whole goal of this test. We've actually been here the past full week with Soul Performance testing out every single configuration on this car. And I can't wait to show you guys the results. We're gonna go look at the differences that this thing makes from each configuration. We're gonna check out the peak numbers. Now, this dyno, it's not a hero run dyno. It doesn't make super big numbers. That's not the point. The point is the delta in power change from each configuration.
So now we're gonna bring John from Soul Performance to talk us through some of the different parts that he's engineered. John, what's up, man?
Hey, good to see you, man.
Good to see you, man.
Thanks for the invite down.
No, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you. So talk us through. I mean, what did you bring for this test? What have you designed here for people to have the 4RS?
So the 4RS has three sections of the exhaust system. You have the factory headers with the primary cats in them. You have the over axle pipes with, in North America, a set of secondary cat cores in them, as well as in Europe, monitored particulate filters additionally in there on top of the secondary cat. So then, of course, you have the big muffler box in the back. So it's three sections of the exhaust system. We've brought all three sections of ours down with us too. We have the replacement competition headers. We've got competition over axle pipes, high flow catted over axle pipes that relocate the primaries downstream. We also brought our non-valved race exhaust system as well as our valved exhaust system to replace the rear muffler box.
I think the cool thing about this test is we kind of get to guide the owner of one of these cars through the journey of different exhaust components. Like me personally, I did the over axle pipes first from FabSpeed. Those were excellent. And right away, I was seeking a little more noise, but also a tone change to the box. But today, with this beautiful little thing, we're gonna see what a GT4 RS sounds like with GT3 characteristics. And I think that's super important because
Absolutely.
I know this test is for power, right? What makes the most power? But really what's important is, do we make that power with the sound?
Yes.
The soul, no pun intended. This car needed a soul.
I mean, right out the gate, and we all know this, we have to give the 4RS a lot of credit. Some of the best driving experience you can get from Porsche right out the gate with that intake system that's just sucking the soul out of your body right in the inside of the car. It's freaking fantastic. But how do we bring the exhaust to be part of the symphony that is that engine sound and that intake induction noise, because the sound of the exhaust is just not present there. Some people prioritize sound level, some people prioritize character and tone change, other people prioritize power and performance over anything else. And what can we do on this car in order to accomplish all of those goals tailored to the individual? And that's our specialty. Now, the whole purpose of coming down here is to see also, for those guys that are very performance driven, what single products do what, across what area of the power curve, what combination of products accomplish what in combination with stock, aftermarket, however you may have it, where's the low-hanging fruit, what are realistic expectations on these cars.
So why don't we go sit down and walk these guys through all of the dyno runs, all the dyno sheets, every single configuration, and then go for a drive. What do you think?
That sounds wonderful.
All right. So here we are in front of the dyno computer with Charles and John, and we're about to dive deep into these numbers. So what do you pull up here? This is stock?
This is the bone stock configuration. So John, this is stock headers, stock over axle pipes, stock muffler setup, correct?
Yep. You know, the stock one looked like, you know, at least on this dyno, the average run was about 420 to the tire in terms of horsepower, and torque was, where were we at on torque? Like 270-ish?
Yep. Right
Peak, peak numbers, of course.
Yeah, well, what's fascinating is here you see this huge dip,
Yeah.
right? And you guys will see as we start adding components how this just gets smoothed out and it becomes way more linear. So let's look at the over axle pipes first.
Pull it up.
All right, so this is over axle pipes, right? Damn.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah,
at that.
so that power dip that you used to have, not so much anymore in the mid-range. So the pickups in the mid-range is pretty huge out of OAPs. The big thing about the OAPs is, boy, the low end and the mid-range pickup, all the way up till, let's see, 5,900 RPM. That's where you're getting a lot of torque.
And I think it's important to talk about sound too. The over axle pipes amplify the stock sound. It's a lot louder with just OAPs. It really is, but the sound still isn't as sexy until you start adding the other components. So that's,
you know, and amplification is a best way to describe an OAP. So if you're only looking for sound level change, when the valves are open, OAPs are a great first step, and it is rewarding in the mid-range from a power perspective.
so can we pull up this with the race rear section? So talk to us about what we see here. It seems like we lose a little bit down low at, like, what is that? 1,000 RPM? No, that's 4,800 RPM, right?
Right around 4,500. Now,
45.
remember, this is in comparison to an over-axle
Yeah,
pipe
to the over
by
axle pipe.
itself.
Yes.
It's still a big net gain over the stock base run, if you still have that there. So you can still see the stock line is still really low. So what you're doing here is you're concentrating on, when you change out a rear system, at least a non-valved one, we'll show you the dyno graph for the valved rear system too, you're picking up over the stock catback, let's say 5 horsepower or so, maybe a little bit more up here, through the top end. So from 5,000 to red line, you're picking up more out of a rear system versus the mid-range, which you're picking up out of an OAP.
I think that's not what's important about this setup. The delta in terms of sound, right? You eliminate the shit stock muffler sound. And you get more of a spirited, soulful GT3-like sound, and that's what I've heard so far hearing the car with that rear section. That's what's most important here. You go rear pipe for sound, for the change in tone, for the change in character. This stock has no character, in my opinion, until you get it over like 7,000 RPM. All right, so what's the next logical thing? I have this set up, but I want a little more craziness.
A little more craziness.
Yeah, I want a
what
little
if,
more crazy.
if we don't mind, just so you can see the valve exhaust
Oh, you want to see
configuration,
the
but
valve.
what if you want this set up, but you want the ability to shut it up?
Oh, okay, that's interesting. I've heard this thing with the valves, and with the valves closed, it sounds pretty much stock. And that's very important, at least for my wife, you know?
Yeah.
For me,
And the neighbors.
and,
Neighbors
yeah,
appreciate it.
and my kids.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so what I see, I mean, you know, I'm looking for up here. Look at this. Valved over not valved all the way to red line.
So as it sits, our valved exhaust configurations, rather than our non-valved exhaust configurations, will net a little bit more performance up there.
Well, nice.
So it's, you know, this is very cool because we feel like a lot of the guys, the target market that we're going after here, still are going to be driving these cars on the street. So the most powerful configurations that we have are for the guys that are going to be driving around every day. And, you know, we're looking forward to seeing also on here what happens when you further uncork the headers in situations like this.
Now we put headers, catted over axle pipes, and your valved rear section, right?
That's correct.
and we are seeing major gains here.
Yep.
So what did we make peak here? It was 450 at the tire.
449.9.
450. 450.
We're rounding up.
Rounded up.
That is huge.
Massive, massive.
That's 40 in the mid-range.
Probably about, that might even be 50.
Torque-wise,
40 to 50.
I think the max gains on the torque is 50-ish right there. You know, if you look, it's pretty much everywhere you're getting performance improvements. There's a small area in here where, if you take note, we did put high flow cats back on versus the competition over axle pipes. And we're about to see the difference on that too. But this is where you have some restriction, and having high flow catted OAPs in play there, restricting the overall potential of what could really happen out of the car.
Now, you know, I'm really enjoying my life with this setup. I love it. It's awesome. But I want to shoot flames.
You want to shoot flames. You want the most power you can possibly have.
Yeah.
You know, most upside maybe with tuning down the line.
Yeah.
You're going to be running competition over axle pipes in this configuration. So let's move to the competition over axle pipes in lieu of the Sport Cat over axle pipes.
All right. So, John, this is full bananas mode.
This is full bananas. This is as aggressive as it gets, valved, of course.
Okay.
This is as most power as it gets. And this is throughout the entire RPM range.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And this you're going to feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a massive delta of change on top of what was already a big, big increase over stock. Going to a, you know, from a Sport Cat over axle pipe configuration on a full exhaust to a competition pipe over axle is a net gain everywhere.
That, man, it's constant.
Carries the entire
It's just constant.
record for this car.
And the thing is, and maybe what we're not talking about, again, I guess we're going to reference tuning. This will make the most power once you can tune as well.
We fully expect that to be the case.
Yes. So makes the most power without tuning, and then with tuning, this is going to be nutty. So now that I think we've seen all the configurations that most people would go for, right?
That most people will go for, yeah.
Is there any others that you want to look at before?
There are those that want to keep stock muffler on the car.
Okay.
So what can you do with the stock muffler on the car? You can replace the headers. You can replace the OAPs. I know it's not what you would do, but some people do want to do that.
So this is
A couple different colors.
headers, race over axle pipes, and catted over axle pipes versus bone stock.
Bone stock's the yellow.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're still seeing the huge gains in the mid-range.
Yeah.
I mean, this is for those of you that, for some reason, like the stock tips, and you can't, I mean, we're just talking about it off camera. To get the stock tip look with any of these configurations, you would have to lose some power. So there's a trade-off to having your car look stock. That being said, still make some power. Yeah, dude. Come on.
And that is what a rear muffler replacement does.
That is why. Why would you not buy the rear muffler? It's just senseless.
Yeah.
You don't get the sound. You obviously don't make the power. Obviously, if you guys are shopping around for exhaust for a $300,000 car, you can afford the rear section. Me personally, you know, I don't want to disrespect anyone. I would go, if I'm going to go headers over axle pipes, I'm going to go full all the way back because you get the sound. All right, before we move on to the rear section only, full everything, bone stock. It's a different car. This is, again, for those of you that want to race. Honestly, the 4RS is not like a car you're going to drag race, which is why you're going to be just as well off by just doing over axle pipes in the rear section.
You get really good gains everywhere on this car. You do.
Dude.
And you don't have to, if you don't want to change the headers, you don't have to. If you want to just do OAPs and rear system, you can do that. If you want to do OAPs, you can just do that. If you are limited where you're at in the world on changing OAPs and headers and you need to just change the muffler itself, there's also that potential as well with our non-valved race exhaust.
For those of you in another country that has to keep the OAPs and basically the header stock, this is what you're going to see with just the rear section, which again, if you come in, almost, so you're talking about 7 horsepower peak, but again, you see the majority of the power band, you have gains everywhere. So pretty much any configuration you guys choose to do, you're gonna make more power. I think it's more about, do we wanna go balls deep and make as much power and as crazy as possible? Because I'm like that, I'm binary, right? It's either the craziest, or for me, the most tame is remove that stupid rear muffler, the stock rear muffler, get over axle pipes, and it's one of those 2 configurations for me personally. That's what I would go with.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you guys are chasing numbers, full competition from front to back, and you're going to make some numbers. So I think that's an important caveat, because now what I want to do is I want to go full competition 4RS versus my demand car.
All right.
Okay.
Pull it up.
Yeah, and the demand car, so you guys have some context, is a 4.5 liter upgrade. It's got the M Engineering tune, Dundon headers, AWE track on the back. All right. I mean,
that is a 4.5 liter GT3.
That's a 4.5 liter GT3 graph. Yeah.
God damn.
Dude, isn't that nasty?
Oh.
Isn't that, look at this.
How can you say you don't want that in that car? I would take that shit all day long. I want power. I'm a power whore.
What do we, I mean, peak, forget about the peak. The peak's 448 versus 495. What is it, about 50 horsepower peak more? But look at the rev range. Look at the power band.
Each one of these blocks is 25.
So you're making 100, 175, all the way. Dude,
look at that torque in mid-range. That is
look at
fat gains.
On pump gas.
That's on pump gas. We're not showing you the 100 octane. I think an important aside here is keep in mind, my 4.5 liter car has software by these guys. And that software picked up, it was like 476 peak, picked up about 40 to 50 mid-range, and about 25 to 30 peak. So if we apply some of that same logic to this car, we're probably going to be in the 485, 490 range horsepower in this car, I think, maybe 480, 485. And then torque, you're gonna probably be at like 320, roughly. So you're gonna make up some of that difference. It's never gonna be a 4.5 liter, but the fact that you can get so close in a car with a PDK that weighs less than 3,200 pounds.
You know, from an easy hardware replacement, you know, bolt-ons and with tune, the car has a lot of potential. It is, you know, one of the best platforms that we've ever worked on. And it is one of the best cars we've ever driven. And I'm very happy to see, you know, how much we've been able to pick up with the exhaust mods with stock software. And when the software comes out, I'd expect we're going to see even more.
Well, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed all of these dyno sheets and dyno runs and data we've given you. You know my conclusions. I think it's important. Now let's go drive the car. We're going to drive it in full competition, everything, and then we're going to throw the catted OAPs on and drive it that way. So I'll give you my impressions then. Here we are in the 4RS in full competition mode. Dude, I'm excited because this is as crazy as it gets, right?
In a valved configuration, it can't get any crazier.
Okay. And
absolutely.
What exactly makes up your full competition setup?
So this is consisting of our competition headers into our competition over axle pipes with our valved exhaust system to replace the rear muffler.
Okay.
Best performing setup on the dyno thus far.
So this is the one on the dyno that we saw made 450 at the tire, right?
Yep, 450 at the tire over a baseline of where the stock runs were averaging about 415 to 420 wheel.
And then what was the mid-range like? I don't remember.
Shockingly better.
Yeah.
We'll go over, you know, the curves in person, but I believe we saw upwards of 50 wheel torque and 40 wheel horsepower in the mid-range. It was exceeded expectations, to say the least.
That's really impressive because I've got in my 3RS a full GMG setup, and at this speed, you can't hear yourself think.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
So you'll start hearing it come in right around 2. Right there.
That's where it is.
That's where that's your drone peak right there, around 2 to 24, right around there. Now, if you put it in a PDK Sport,
oh wow,
you're right above Now,
right away.
And if you shut the valves, you'll hear as you get into the right around that 24 mark, it clears up. And then as you feed in more throttle, you get more induction noise, which overpowers the drone, and then the valves open.
I think it's important now that we know how refined this is with the valves off or on, really, at these low RPMs. We're having a conversation and the drone isn't driving me insane. I want to roll the windows down because really that's what this car was missing before, is this experience right here. I'm going to kick it over to manual, downshift a couple times. Holy shit! That's a big difference, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys know how good the 4RS is. Hold on. Hold on. Uptick in torque at this range, because this car stock has nothing right here.
Yeah.
And you can tell the car is faster.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Like you don't get the turbo shove from like a 720 or something, right? And I've said that before on this channel, but now you get a little gut punch, and I'm going to go ahead and go around this car. Windows down one more time so you guys get a load of this. That is an order of magnitude crazier than stock. You know, when I was coming in, I had a preconceived notion about the straight through system, even with the valves being too uncivilized for me.
Yeah.
And we haven't driven the catted system. So it's full competition, and it's so livable, I'm tempted to just keep this. I haven't driven the other. I can't wait because I don't know what the volume change is. But dude, this is really good. So let's head back, throw on the over axle pipes that have the catalytic converters, and see what that sounds like. All right, so here we are, round 2 of the drive. And now instead of the competition over axle pipes, we have the catted over axle pipes. So what's the difference?
Long term,
yeah,
without software, no CEL. It's really a big
CEL.
difference. Less overall volume change. Because you have now a high flow cat in the flow path, you dampen some of the, let's say, unrefined or raspy tone qualities that you could have with straight piping. A resonated OAP would do as good, if not better, of a job, and also reduce cabin presence further in a drone range than a high flow cat.
So right away, the shocking part is at that peak drone range from the last setup, you get a much lower volume and, and honestly much less drone right here. Let's give it the beans a little bit here. Now, let's open the portal of happiness. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I like this a little more.
Yeah.
The sound.
Mm-hmm.
One more time here. It sounds like a proper GT car.
Yeah, man.
Holy shit, dude. I think this configuration is the one for me.
Excellent.
It is. Now you can play the musical instrument.
Yeah.
I like
This car's good.
that. The headers give it that sound right there. That's just nutty, bro.
Yeah. It's sharp.
Oh my goodness. I think the ticket is the other setup with the resonated over axle pipes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what I think of.
I'm thinking that's darn close to perfect.
That's darn close.
Darn close to perfect.
Because this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
You get more power out of it. And as long as it keeps the refinedness and the smoothness that we've experienced with this setup, it's got more power. And that is something that we should all chase.
Well, let's head back to the to M Engineering and conclude this video. Thank you, bro,
Sounds
for
good.
everything.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that's the end of the video. What an experience dynoing every single configuration and then driving this car as it sits. Thank you, Soul Performance and M Engineering, for the opportunity to do this with you guys. But I think the takeaways from this video are, now you guys understand, whether you're buying Soul or another exhaust provider, how the different configurations perform. I think if you're gonna have this car and you wanna make it a bit more special, you either have to go full competition race with the headers over axle pipes and rear section, or you can go just over axle pipes and the valved rear. Those are my two preferred configurations, and I think a sneaky option for those of you in places like the UK and Europe, you can just get the rear section and still get that tone change that eliminates that shitty stock 4RS rasp. But yeah, guys, that's it. Hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, go down below, like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. I love you. Take care. Peace.